Somalida Norway, hi på dere. Hei på dere. أنا waxaan dhahaa Yunus Yusuf, أنا waxaan ka shaqeeyaa comedy. Comedy waxa uu dhahaa Somali. Ya? Shatrool aan. Laakiin aniga waxaan comedy waxaan ku sameeyaa af Norweji iyo af Ingiriis. Wiilga af Somali ku sameeyaa. Laakiin sanadka hore waxaan aaday Muqdisho. iyo marka af Somali ku hadlay dadka waa igu qosleen. So shatrool waa ku sameeyaa af Somali xataa. Laakiin hadda waxaan rabaa inaan af Ingiriis ku hadlo af Norweji. Okay miya? Okay. Det var deilig, altså. Det var veldig stressende debut der. Jeg var stressa. Det er det verste jeg har gjort, men ok, hyggelig å være her. Går det bra? Ja. En ære å være her. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, my fellow Somalis. You're my favorite type of Somalis. Ambitious Somalis. I love ambitious Somalis. And I work in comedy. I've been doing it for like 10 years now. My father came in the 80s. And likewise with all of you guys, like I had like 3 options growing up. I could either become a doctor, or engineer, or not my son. And it's like I became a comedian, and I became really proud of like being a Somali comedian, because when I started doing comedy in Norway, it was just white people, just Norwegians, and it was really hard for me to get access to the comedy scene. So the first thing I did was travel around the country, and all these cities I went to, I always saw a lot of Somalis. And I remember the first time like I flew to Norge, it was a super small plane, like Videre. And I sat like in the front of the plane, and the plane went up, and it was like, please take off your seatbelts. I took off my seatbelt, and then this like a flight attendant came to me, and she was like, can you please move to the back of the plane? And I thought it was like a racism thing, like Rosa Parks situation, you know? So I was like, back of the plane? What do you? And she said, no. And then she said, we need your weight to balance the plane. So I was super stressed. I went back slowly, went to back of the plane, and I sat down with a shuluk guy, a fat guy. And the thing is, like, the Norwegians, how come about them? How come about them? Norway, that's called Norwegian. Halla, fully that gun. Halla, actually, Faridi, Basco Clet. You had Norwegian Meshan Farida, and the Meshan Faridi. You can horror and stag. Mudayo, Meshan, move Mudayo. Usmena. So the other one can for unique Sasutani. I'm out of the Muscushan, Muscusho Hortasa. My eyes and I would have balance and I. King, look at the New Norigaman Canal, New Norigo, how I call it, Lausa, Taco Trumps, New Norigo. Jag har arke calm. Asil muta calm wa saman. Calm, calm. Ja, maten. Och kaswai would calm mission side. Why the Norwegian government just put a lot of refugee camps in the northern part of Norway. And then I understood because Ramadan. Because we got to fast from sunrise to sunset, and it's no sunset. There's hungry Somalis, you know. So that was really fun. And when I went to the northern part of Norway, I also saw a lot of Somalis there. A lot of Somali fishermen, just making their money, doing their thing. And where I went, I always saw Somalis, and they always came to me. And it was really weird because you see Somalis everywhere, and they're all different, you know. My favorite types of Somalis are like the districts one, you know? Like my friend here, Suberala Kaneto. He comes from a place called Vidya. So he's like a Somali guy who grew up with a tractor. Like a Norwegian farmer, but a Somali guy. And it's really fascinating. But I am super proud. Like I remember like when I was younger, I used to work in sales, telephone sale. Anybody here? adiga magacaadi Maryama telefoonkana maxaa ku baahitdo Anna أنا حتى واحد عيوني عبد الله لكن ما كان تلفون خاطر أنا يجري يونس أنش يونس أنش الله شو popular everybody loved Jonas Anderson everybody and he went to another guy in the office محمد الله كاسيته هذا حتى ساسمي ما عنده ريدز هذا عوداي نول بروبلم عوداي نول بروبلم so تلفون كله قاعد عوداي hello that all better I traveled a lot as a Somali. I remember like I wanted to go to America to do comedy, and it was while Donald Trump was president, and he had this speech where he was like, "We don't want immigrants from shithole countries like Somalia. We want immigrants from great places like Norway." And I brought my passport, and they were like, "Fuck, we should have been specific." So I remember like, because I went to Somalia back in 2008. I was like, just like, I was walking around in Somalia. I remember I had a pink t-shirt, I had gold chain, I had jilasa. And I was walking in Karan, in Mogadishu, and I was walking, and then two men holding their hands. They were holding their hands, and they came to me. They were like, "Qanis matai." Well, I still don't understand that one. But yes, when I went to America, like, it was a really great experience. I remember like when I came to America, and they were like, "We don't want immigrants from shithole countries." I came. And then when I came to the passport control, they looked at my name, you know, and my name is Liorsis Abdullah Frahil Al Usabe. Like, my passport says to be continued, you know. So when I showed my passport, the guy who looked at my passport, he's like, and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Norway." And then he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, Norway. It's times to be proud of being Somali, and there's times to not be proud of being Somali, and those times are at the passport controls. So when he took me to a waiting room, he took me to a waiting room, and he was like, "Okay, I gotta check you," and he checked me, and then he's like, "Have you ever been to Somalia?" And I was there in 2008, but I didn't want to lie, so I said, "Yes. I was visiting my dying grandmother." And I thought you'd be like, okay, you go on. And then he started pressing the buttons, and it's like, "Do you have family there now?" And I was like, "Yes, my grandmother." She's still alive, you know, strong woman, you know. She saw Black Hawk Down and everything, and she's up there. But I travel, and I work as a comedian now. I've traveled the world as a comedian. And I've seen Somali comedians all over the world as well. We have a guy in Finland, we have a guy in England, we have a guy we have a girl in Denmark, we have a girl in America. And it's so many Somalis all over the world that are doing huge things. And the one thing that I'm most proud of is the resilience we Somalis have. Like, you could be the only Somali guy in a city in northern Norway, and I believe me, he's going to do okay. Like, wherever you go, you see Somalis, they can handle themselves. They're survivors, they're strong, and they know how to handle themselves. And we're really funny. Like the guy who was up here and talking about the poetry, you were funny too, though. But the guy who talked about poetry, when you hear poetry and you hear like Somalis being funny, like I remember when I was in Somalia, I met this guy called Koronto. And he called him Koronto because he had epilepsy, you know? It's true. I saw a guy called Indora, and it's like, "Why are you doing?" He's like, "I can't afford the glasses." I heard about a guy called Bas to me. He got shot so many times. You know what they called me? Marhabilan. Marhawin. They called me like they said I had a big head. So all the Somalis I met were like extremely funny. And my biggest regret in life is that I can never translate the pure Somali comedy that we have to other languages. So that means that comedy is just for us, and that's enough. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Oslo.
واو واسبوعك يسوي في عايز صاحبي
wadkeeshi sama
ما شاء الله صح ما عاد وش بسيط
waxaan ku shubtay xidhmo furan $10 baad ku shuban kartaa 5 baad ku shuban kartaa 15 baad ku shuban kartaa 20 baad ku shuban kartaa
u soo wareegoo la jaanqaad dunida casriga oo ku maamulo abka dahabalaas nolol maalmeedkaaga maaliyadeed hadda kala soo deg App Store iyo Play Store abka dahabalaas